The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome to Old Space Show. I'm Brandon, and as I pull into park in the garage with me is Tony Schaab.
We've made it. We've reached our final destination. Put the parking brake on because we have arrived.
Yes, that we have arrived at the final episode of the first season of Knight Rider, the exploits of a man in his talking car. So here we are. We did it. 22 episodes. This final one being called Short Notice.
An interesting way to end the season on such short notice here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, in this episode, Michael picks up a hitchhiker who's looking for her daughter. When he defends her from a couple of bikers from the Satan's Stompers Motorcycle Club, he ends up charged with second-degree murder himself.
All right. This is directed and written by Robert Foster in his only directorial credit. Starring David Hasselhoff, Edward Mulhare, Tricia McPherson, William Daniels, Robin Curtis.
Oh yeah, welcome, Savick.
Yeah, the second Savick.
That's
from
right.
Star Trek 3 and 4.
Yes.
So here she is in Knight Rider, pre-Star Trek, I believe. Yeah, because Savick was in 82's Wrath of Khan. So
That's
she
right.
was on her way to replacing Kirstie Alley. William Smith, Sandy McPeak, Dennis Berkeley, Jordan Clark, Gail Fisher, David Hess. Yes, David Hess from Last House on the Left is here.
There it is.
And Brittany Wilson. So, Tony.
Yo.
Small town. Again. Bikers. Yep. Again.
Yeah.
Single mother Michael helps. Again. Kidnapping a child? New?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I feel like they, that's it feels recycled on the surface. It's also important to note that this is one of the few episodes this season that focused on, maybe the only episode that focused the main plot point on Michael helping himself. Usually it's someone else is in a jam and Michael and Flag have to come take care of business. But yeah, this Michael gets put in a weird situation after picking up a hitchhiker, as one does. Especially, it's so funny. I mean, he sees not only any hitchhiker, a lady hitchhiker, and he literally, as he pulls over with Kid, he goes, "Oh my!" I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go." So like the skeeviest of all skeeves here. So, but yes, of course, he finds himself in trouble as only Michael Knight can.
He sounds like he sounds like the guy on the bonus features for Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock, talking about how he gets to share his first love scene on film with Robin Curtis. Oh, Robin Curtis! I'm like, who? Okay, I only know her from Star Trek stuff. Like, what the?
Right? Yes,
Okay,
it's a very deep genre cut, but okay.
I did note that there were some sick bass licks in this score. I noticed that it was like very bass-like driven.
We definitely go out on a high note on the soundtrack option, yes, because all the background music is very kind of funky. We get a couple of well-known songs in here as well. They definitely pumped up the budget for this one, I think.
So Tony, they played Night Moves in this episode, but not the one called Night Moves from a couple weeks ago.
Yes, that's
they
right.
had the rights to use the music, and they used it in the one called Shortcuts. And not,
maybe they felt I don't know, maybe they felt like it was too that was too on the nose. I don't know, but
I mean, I know one was spelled with a K, Night, but come on.
You're right, you're not wrong.
The other was Sweet Home Alabama, got used in a country bar with, you guessed it, Correct. Confederate flags all over the
Oh
place.
boy. Yeah, it's choices were made. It's the 80s. I'm not
Yep.
saying forgive everything, but
Yeah. It's
it is what it
80s.
is.
It's in that period where like the honky tonks are taking over disco. That's where we're at, like urban cowboy. We've gone
Yeah.
from like, yeah, we're gone from Saturday Night Fever Travolta to urban cowboy Travolta now, and that's where.
Right. And this is where Confederate paraphernalia was probably
Mhm.
considered very kitschy at that point before anybody was taking it too seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it was Dukes of Hazzard was, the
Right.
General Lee. I was splattered all over that show. Um, and yeah, that's where Knight Rider is bringing it in with. And this episode is the part of the place where he's staying at, which this one deals with. The basic plot line is there's this mother, and she apparently had a child with her ex-husband, who's not a good person, and
Shocker. Yeah. Yeah.
friend with hillbillies and bikers or whatever, and kidnaps their daughter, and he's gonna help the mom go back to try to get her, but she kind of is like, okay, you can help me, Michael, but I'm gonna do things on my own when I have to, and kind of screws things up a bit more with it. But uh yeah, it's got a lot of like, I don't know, there's Michael and this really intense actor that I know I've seen in some other stuff. Um Going at it face to face a lot, and you get these interiors, like every house interior in Knight Rider has like a deer head on the wall and like horns,
Of
it feels
course.
like. But yeah, I mean, we get to see stuff like Kit. Yeah, there's an ejector seat that we get to see jump over a fence and stuff, and he's got a dashboard with like a full command center. I did note that there was one time where he went on auto, and we actually like saw like this angle of the command center, and then we saw like the accelerator go down on its own, and it felt like they've never really showed us like the inner workings of Kit going by himself.
Yes, that one. Yes, that shot I believe has been used maybe just once or twice, very
Okay.
sparingly, which they do have a tendency to reuse a lot of shots and jumps and things like that. But yes, you're right. That was used very sparingly. We also see a good amount of time when the young girl, the young daughter, is in the car alone with Kit,
Oh
and
yeah,
there's a time where Kit has to drive her, and there's a lot of like you can see the wheel turning on its own and things like that. So yeah, there's definitely an increase in his autonomous functions, or at least the visual representation of that in this
right.
episode.
Yeah, definitely. And there's like Honky Tonk Barin that's like kind of had some Knight Rider greatest hits here in this episode.
Yes, that's right.
And they do I did notice Robin Curtis and Michael or David Hasselhoff do not buckle up in the car ever. They're always unseatbelted. And I don't know, it just really stood out to me this episode. I'm sure Michael Knight's never wore a seatbelt, but yeah, so we have this outlaw type villain. So of course we randomly wind up in this like desert movie town for the finale with a shootout.
It's a really weird set. And I was trying to identify it. I can't find anything in the trivia or the notes, but it really like so when they end up in this town, I mean, literally, like you said, desert, Old West, there are like I think at one point Natalie she kicks a tumbleweed away, and then they go into a shop where Michael's talking to the daughter, and he's like, "You want ice cream?" La la la. I'm like, "How is this a functioning shop or whatever?" Like this seems like an old, but I felt like when he was walking in, and I can't confirm this, but this seems like the same shop from the other episode with the bikers when he was in the small town, the set that was redressed as Hill Valley. It felt like to me, it looked like the exact same. Like when they walked in, I was like, "Oh, there's the back corner where that gal was cooking him a burger before the bikers came in." Like I got like visceral flashbacks. I can't find confirmation of that, but it felt like that was the same set. But yeah, I mean, it was a strange vibe to go into the Old West kind of town there. So
well, they give you a shootout, a car chase, or a game of chicken, and then fisticuff showdown between Michael and the husband. Like So
It's all
like,
very intense. It's a very it's a very intense feeling episode, which I
mhm,
get it. Like stakes are high for Michael personally. He's been accused or charged with second degree murder, and
right,
only Nicole can help him
hmm,
clear his name and
right.
things like that. So yeah, it's a very very
Kit
high
didn't like
stakes
going
high
to
tension
jail.
episode.
Kit was not happy about jail this time.
He's very 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 serious about that. So
Hmm.
it's interesting. I mean, this was clearly, I think this was definitely, they knew that this was the end of the first season. I'm assuming by this point they had already been renewed for a second season, so that I
Right.
think they felt like they knew they had more to come. But this does feel like an end of certain aspects of the Knight Rider era, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
This is the last episode where we get when the action freezes before they go to commercial, and the screen goes down into the little corner and has
Yep.
a shot of Kit at night. And this is the last episode where we get that.
Yep.
That's gone moving forward. This is the last episode. I don't know any of the legalities behind this of why it happened, but this is the last episode where Kit is referred to as a Trans Am. In the second season moving
Hmm.
forward, they call Kit a T-top. So I don't know if that's a
Oh,
Pontiac
okay.
thing. I don't know if Pontiac
Hmm.
changed production, but so there's these little, this is like, again, you feel like the when you're in the episode, it doesn't feel like a big deal, but moving forward from the season, there are a bunch of these little things that happen for the last time in this episode that you're like, kind of, I'll miss that a little bit moving
Yeah.
forward,
I
So
wonder, like the T-top, maybe that was the specific version of Trans Am and people were ordering them wrong or something and they wanted to make sure the
it's
show said it correctly, or
It's very possible. It's also possible
hmm,
that maybe Trans Am, based on the success of Knight Rider, maybe augmented the Trans Am to a specific design
yeah,
to match, they had like an exclusive kit edition that they called the T top. I
interesting.
have
Yeah.
no idea. I haven't done any research on this. I just found this in a
Gotcha.
little trivia note. So yeah,
Gotcha.
it's
Interesting.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, there was for me, kind of a lack of Devin and Bonnie in this finale. And
Hmm.
it's kind of
Oh yeah.
crazy because Bonnie won't be back the following season. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they kind of had disappointing roles in this one. Um, that just because their first scene's a TV scene. And Bonnie's like on the phone in the background for that, and then he visits them where they're like, "Yeah, you should probably not do this," and they're like, he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna do this," and uh, kind of one of those scenes, and they don't really feature in the finale, the final scene much at all. So like it, yeah,
You're right. Well, and I'm sure that they didn't know. I'm assuming maybe that they didn't know that this is Patricia McPherson's last episode. That Bonnie
right.
wasn't coming back for season two. I don't know when that decision gets made, but
Yeah,
yeah, maybe they
yeah.
didn't, or maybe it was intentional. If maybe they did know, and they're like, we got to minimize Bonnie. Like let's work her out. I have no idea.
Well, I mean, they
I
replace her, but I imagine this was shot
right.
before. I mean, they probably got their, their first season, their back nine, and then like, oh no, you know what? With the hit, when the TV movie was a hit, I'm sure they greenlit the rest of the season. So it probably sometime in May that year before they go back into production made that decision, and she probably got paid for season two, even though she wasn't in it. I would imagine,
Yeah,
unless they were. I mean, yeah, Hasselhoff had been on a multi-year contract, but
right.
she was brought in a little later because she wasn't in the TV movie. So,
That's true.
yeah, her situation was probably different. But so you hinted towards this a little bit with what you were talking about, but did this feel like a big finale episode? Was it bigger stakes? Were the guest stars bigger? Cliffhanger at all? Like, do you think?
Not really, not for me. I mean, it didn't. I mean, it had. I think again because it shifted gears so seriously plot wise and focused on Michael instead of Michael
Hmm.
helping others. It was Michael having to save himself. To me, it felt different enough that it put a cap on it for me.
Right.
And again, it's a possibility that by this point they were already greenlit for a season two, even when they were in production. So maybe they were like, you know what, we don't do anything big like a big cliffhanger because we're definitely coming back next year. So let's just have fun with it and move on.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it was different enough for me, but it definitely didn't have that kind of climactic season ending vibe that most shows have.
Yeah. And so like I was like, okay, the guest star wise, there's the Robin Curtis at the time. Where was Robin Curtis at the time? Well, she was an up and comer, like, because she was in a TV movie called In Love with an Older Woman, in 82. 81, she was in that movie Ghost Story, the one that had Fred Astaire in it, and then fellow Trekker Alice Creed, Craig
Yeah.
Wasson, and so it's just I've seen it before. I think I have it on Blu-ray, but it's a little horror movie with some bigger names, and so like she was on, like, it looks like an episode of General Hospital.
Yeah, it
So
becomes a question of, was she, it's like a chicken and the egg thing. Was she on Knight Rider because she was up and coming, or was she on Knight Rider because she was doing everything under the sun
yeah,
and this was part of her being an up and
was
comer,
she yeah
you
was she
know?
a buzzy actor at the time? Like, that's what I'm kind
Right.
of.
Or did this lend to her buzz? Sometimes you get that
Yeah.
casting that's just right place, right time, and you're like, oh yeah, we cast her like we were talking about Star Trek earlier, like what Star Trek Nemesis had
Hmm.
Tom Hardy as Shinzon. Like, did you know Tom Hardy was going to be a big thing, or did we
Right.
just get lucky with the casting before he exploded? Right. I think it's the latter, but
Hmm.
it's hard to say. So,
So William Smith, he plays the husband in this.
mm,
He was in Any Which Way You Can. He'd go on to be bad guy in Red Dawn. Um, he's in, plenty of stuff, but at the time, it's just been another gig for him. He's in he's in the Andy Sedaris movie Seven. That's why he's so familiar for me.
gotcha.
He did an episode of like Buck Rogers. He did 19 episodes of Hawaii Five-O. He played Chemo. Um, BJ the Bear. Yeah, so he's just kind of a guy that's around. So it would have been like, oh, he played Conan's father in Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
we go.
He's
So
got that.
yeah,
He's got that. For me, he's got that Danny Trejo kind of vibe, where he's like
yes,
the strong, silent type, and when he opens his mouth, you better damn well listen. That kind of vibe. So,
exactly, exactly. So that's where he's at. So I didn't feel anything was different than any other episode finale wise until they got to the Old West set at the end. I'm like, okay, this is where they're going for it. But in terms of like, if you're randomly catching this on TV or something, you'd have never guessed it was the finale of season 1
you're
at
absolutely
all.
right.
You didn't. So it doesn't have that, or it doesn't even feel like a sweeps week episode. So
No,
I just
yeah, no, you're right.
so that's where we're at. But this is different era in television. They didn't have to be that way. They just had to entertain you for this week and maybe do a little extra. Their little extra was the Western set with, you get a shootout, you get a car stunt thing, and you get a fist fight. Michael mano y mano.
No, and it was all things considered, it was a fairly sweet wrap up at the end. Usually your codas are very comical and
Mhm.
funny, and this episode instead we get Natalie, the little girl who has kind of bonded with Kit over the
Mhm.
final act of the show, where it becomes a thing where she hears him talk, and she's very as only a childlike wonder can have, she of
Mhm.
anyone in the entire season except for Michael, of course, it talks to Kit as a
Yes.
person the
And
most.
Kit
like
makes the
like she just
eyes.
That's right, he makes absolutely terrible, creepy, graphic
Yes.
eyes,
Yep.
things like that. But then it's interesting to kind of see her talk to him at the end, and then Michael comes up, and she was like, well, I see
Mhm.
you again, Kit. It's a very interesting. So hear me out on this one. I was thinking about this earlier tonight, because
Okay.
that a lot of these 80s shows are now getting revived and rebooted. We've got a Magnum PI reboot,
Right.
right? Like, we've got like these 80 Hawaii Five-O's got a reboot. So my gears started turning. I was like, would they ever like reboot or update for like a current generation Knight Rider? Because for as many things as ho hum for Kit to be now with smart cars,
Hmm.
he's still very intelligent. Like, no car would drive itself like Kit. Like,
Right.
no car would like be like your like actual partner.
Hmm.
So my gears started really turning, and this is probably the writer in me. I'm like, if they were to reboot this, wouldn't it be interesting if they would follow the path? Like, so Natalie, this little girl, let's say that she never forgets Kit. Like, he
Okay.
leaves this like lasting impression on her. She grows up, gets a degree in like computers and like software design and engineering and stuff.
Hmm.
She becomes an adult. She finds like a rotting, broken down old kit in a warehouse
Gotcha.
somewhere, infuses him with new technology, and then goes on adventures with him. Like, wouldn't
Okay.
that be a badass way to like
That's a
reboot
yeah.
this series?
That
I mean,
would
am I
be good.
crazy?
No, you're not crazy. I think part of the thing with Knight Rider is they've rebooted it multiple times already. So I think that's
You're
probably what
right. I
the
mean,
holdup is with it. No, your
yeah,
idea is great. That'd be the way to do it. And if you ask David Hasselhoff, they're always bringing it back. So that's what he'll say.
sure,
But
you're right, of course. But this, I think that would be a fun way to
yeah, no,
then
I like that.
Michael, like he could guest star as Michael Knight. You wouldn't have to
Right.
like have the guy in his car. It could be the girl in his car. It's a very natural progression into like having, a different vibe with
Hmm.
with a girl in her car going on adventures and also being able to update Kit into the
Right.
modern world, things like that. So, or take his motherboard and put him in a Tesla, like whatever, do
Right.
whatever you want.
Well,
Like there's
I
got to
mean,
be a way to
that fit
figure it out.
that fits very much with like how the new Quantum Leap is because
That's what I was just gonna say. If
yeah.
we can bring Quantum Leap back without Sam Beckett, we can figure out a way to do Knight Rider.
Well, so the new are you watching the new Quantum Leap at all?
I have not. No,
Okay.
I need to catch up with it.
So Ernie Hudson's character on it is a guy that Sam leaped into during the season 3 premiere, The Leap Home, when he her was it The Leap Home? Was that when he went to Vietnam and
Yeah,
he leapt into a guy there. Um, Ernie Hudson's that guy, and he
gotcha.
has no memory of when Sam leapt into him, but he knows Sam did, and he's made it his mission to try to help wants to find Sam. And it also has different gives you more explanation on what happens with, kind of like what happens with
Good.
people after.
Yeah.
And so there's like that pulling from one random character from an episode. This is like what you're saying with Knight Rider that works, that
Yes.
if you're fresh to the idea, it's still friendly to a new user, but it also is like a nice little touch to like say we're still continuing for you folks too. So
Sure. I appreciate that. That's what,
mhm,
to a very lesser extent, that's what like some of these tangential Star Wars
mhm.
shows, like The Mandalorian, like you don't have to
Yeah,
know like the history of why people think Boba Fett's so badass to enjoy The
right,
Mandalorian. So yeah,
right.
I get that. I appreciate that vibe for sure. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So looking back on Knight Rider, um, season, what's your general thoughts of this first season?
I enjoyed this rewatch more than I thought I was going to.
Hmm.
I had a concern that I would go back and feel like this is a very dated show, like nothing made sense anymore. I was concerned that like my memory of Kit being a badass car was going to be tempered by the fact that I can get in my own car that is in no way badass but still talk to it these days and things like that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I absolutely appreciated what this season did. I thought it was great. I thought it was fun. I see why it was so popular back in the day. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great,
Yeah.
for sure.
I have to say I was surprised. I thought I was like, this might be a bad idea. Um, and then a few episodes in, I was like, okay, this isn't, this is not the show that my memory served it as possibly being or something like that. And I was like, you know what, this is more clever. Like, is it like, oh, I recommend Knight Rider. You better get back on that. No, no. And it is
Right.
long to get through because it's a old show and it's length, it's a bigger season. And it's not heavily serialized. So, um, picking it up here and there and casually getting through it, that's not going to hurt. And you're going to be pretty. I was more, the crazy thing was I was impressed with Hasselhoff a lot. I'm like, okay, I get why he was the man for, and had this big breakout with this role
Yeah,
because he's
absolutely.
very good and he's not the type of good I expected. Like I said, I very much feel like he is ahead of his time in the type of action hero lead he's playing here that wasn't really happening in movies at all and wouldn't happen in movies for a while. So
Right.
I was pretty extensively like that. I liked Patricia McPherson. It just surprises me they would dump her after that one. And she worked really well in that she was the perfect like cog between the Devin and the Michael um kind of vibe, but I guess they probably thought, oh, the spunky little girl's dime a dozen or something like that. I don't know where the issue
Yeah.
came with her being replaced, or maybe, this is the old days where like, hey, my cousin's kid's nephew's daughter's got this thing, just kick that girl out, or I like that girl, or I'm sleeping with this girl at the, I don't know what the other actress was doing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there are, while we think there's some complex reason or some odd professional thing, it could be the most unprofessional reason why she was replaced as well.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
but they did, fans complain, and she comes back in season 3. So that
All is
happened.
right with the world. Yes,
All's
there you
right
go.
with the world. But yeah, so I'm very surprised at how this turned out. Do you have any, like, can you remember any favorite episodes or anything at all, or?
I mean, not particularly. There was, like I said, it was definitely, going back sometimes when you go back to rewatch these old shows that you watched, or
Mhm.
at least that I watched with a kid. It's part of the reason that I will never, probably I may never again go back and watch Thundercats. Like, I'm afraid, like, I
Right. Yeah.
remember it with rose tinted glasses, and you go back and you're like, oh my god, like, what, this is a different time. I was a different person. I'm very easily entertained, but this was not that. I just the entire vibe kind of permeated throughout the season of just really just enjoying it. It was unique at the time. There was nothing like it on TV, and I still feel like it's unique. There's nothing quite like this to this day that has this blend of everything we just talked about. So
Right. Yeah, I agree. I tend to remember from this one, there's the car episode. Can't forget that
of course,
episode.
yes, of course.
The recent one we did with the spy stuff was cool. And I want to say, like, I remember the Maria Conchita Alonso one.
Of course.
That one a bit, and there was the was it the one where Michael had the friend, and there's the Woody Allen guy. I remember that one a bit.
Oh yeah, like the
So,
weird, like,
yeah.
buddy cop type of, where they
Yeah.
the odd couple kind of pairing. Yeah, that was
Yes,
a pretty engaging one. I remember
right.
the one with his fiance, but for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I remember that one, but yeah, so there's that one. And then Topaz Connection's familiar, but I don't know if it's just because it was one of the more recent ones that we did. But it was not bad at all. So that was Knight Rider season 1. We did it. Another one in the books for Old Space Show. So Tony, let's shift gears and look on the sunset. And before we hit that horizon, where can people find you?
Yeah, so if you want to talk about not just Knight Rider, but anything old space or new space, you can come wander over to sciencefiction.com, where I serve as the senior editor, and we do current stuff as well. We do movie reviews, news, pop culture, current stuff. We do classic retro stuff as well. So try to cover that entire spectrum, having fun over at sciencefiction.com. And of course, if you want to hang out with just me personally or talk to me directly, you can find me on most of the social medias at Tony Schaab.
All right. Hashtag honk if you like listening. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD, written work on WineSoBlue.com. Old Space Show is taking a break or hiatus or whatever you want to call it for a bit. I apologize to those of you devoted listeners of Old Space. I always talk to people are always like, I like that Old Space Show. I'm like, okay, I do too. But it's taking a break for a bit. It will return again in some form, and I don't mean that as in like it's going away or saying like I want to continue doing Old Space Show. It's just time is a thing. I can't put a date on when, but stay tuned. There's a very special show that's near and dear to me, turning 60 this year, and I'll have to say some stuff about it. And then also, so since I'm pulling the plug on it for a little bit, I will tell you that Tony and I's next show that we're gonna do that isn't the Who thing that I just teased or something like that will be we're going to do Sliders.
We're gonna move into the 90s. It's still old, but it's not quite as old.
Well, it's old. It is old. It's still old. Like,
you're right.
I mean, if I do like I'm serious, like I've if I do like the Christopher Eccleston Doctor Who, that is still old because it's almost
You're
20.
right.
It is almost
You're
20
right.
years old. So
I feel old saying that's old, but you are 100% correct. So
it's crazy. So we're the Sliders. will be the next Old Space Show proper when it comes back. But it's probably going to wait till the end of summer of 93 at 30, which I have been working on quite a bit. That's going to be hitting up very soon here. I don't know when.
Yeah.
So when it might be the week after this episode drops. I don't know where it's at, but yeah. And then right before summer of 93 at 30, once these commentaries end, I am doing a summer movie preview episode with Sabina Graves, and we're gonna go over this year's summer. We're gonna play a little game that we're gonna come back to and see who wins it at the end of the summer. So when summer of 93 at 30 ends, our summer show for the current stuff we'll pick up and see what happened. But a lot of fun stuff. So appreciate your listening. And Old Space Show will return. And when it does, we're gonna have some more fun. So stay tuned. Keep on the YouTube channel. I've been posting videos regularly recently, so I've been getting a lot of review copies and stuff, and people like watching me hold up things and talking about them. I appreciate.
Who doesn't love a good review reaction video? Who doesn't?
I hate calling them. I hate calling them unboxings, but god damn it, that's what they are.
There you go.
So okay, but one more time, Tony from Old Space.
It's Brandon and Tony, not so lone crusaders in a dangerous world. The world of Old Space Show.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.